Everyone and welcome to iCoding Club. My name is Praveen Singh and today we're going to talk about the inheritance in Dojo. Now, Dojo is a JavaScript library and it's trying to solve the problems what we have in JavaScript for the inheritance. Now, the inheritance in JavaScript is not that much straightforward because it's based on the prototype inheritance, unlike the class-based inheritance in other language. So if you're new to the JavaScript itself and don't know, even how the simple prototype inheritance work, you can actually check out my article based on the uh, uh, which say the simple prototype based inheritance in JavaScript. Here I explain, how the inheritance work in the pure JavaScript without any libraries. Other thing is like if you new to Dojo and you want to go for the Hello World first and come back to this article, you can actually go to click on the Dojo tab here and check out all the other Dojo article what I have put together. So what you're going today is we're going to talk about a two type of inheritance. One I call it the tradition, the classical approach where we're going to have this kind of class diagram or the class structure. It's more like the developer industry where we have the developer, Java developer, JavaScript developer, and Node.js developer. I will come back to this, but the another approach what we have is kind of mixing approach. For the class diagram for mixing approach, I put it here where developer actually include the mixing only when it need the functionality. So like in developer, if it need the Java skills, it will include the Java skill mixin. If it needs JavaScript functionality, it will include JavaScript skill mixin, or it can include both. This is true for other use cases for the editor, it could be the create functionality or edit functionality or delete functionality. Depending on what you want to provide in editor, you can include the functionality n number of functionality. So let's go back to the classical approach first and try to understand what we have here. The two things you must look in the inheritance is how you can extend the functionality from the parent class. Second, how can you override the functionality of the parent class? So we'll talk about both the things in this one, but I just explain this class diagram first. So there is a developer class, which is the topmost class. When I'm calling the class, yeah, I know that there's nothing like class in JavaScript, but for the sake of convenience or to understand, I just calling it everything class. But yeah, it's just an object at the end of the day. So there's a developer class where we have the common functionality like the print skill and work on, which we can be utilized from the child class. The print skill just print the all the skill the developer has. Work on print where the developer work. It work on the client side or in the server side. So developer doesn't know where to work. So it just is there and it says that I don't know where to work. Java developer know that most of the key going to work on the server side. So it's override the work on functionality and say that I work on the server side. JavaScript developer knows that, yeah, I'm gonna work on the browser, so it's a client side. So let's override the work on function and I will print that, yeah, I work on the client side. Now, Node.js developer extend the JavaScript developer. It says, yeah, the skill is JavaScript. Yeah, I understand that, but I don't work on the client side. I actually work on the server side. So why not let's override the work on functionality and it just override to print that, I work on the server side. So I just talk about a little bit of setup before we move to the hands-on. So this is the package structure what I'm looking for this hands-on. So you have to create this module and so this kind of file, and the library will sit inside the library folder and the other Dojo components. Second thing what I want to say is that yeah, Dojo can be work without the server, but as Dojo website says that Dojo work best and without problem when it's inside of server. It designed in that way, it built in that way. So best is just put inside server. I'm on the Mac, so I can put, I can just call the Python script to create a server. If you're on some other environment, if you have Python ready, yeah, just call it or try to figure out some similar way to put static file inside the, web server. Now what I will start with we're going to create this four class or object one by one. So in my case, the server is already running and I already created the package structure and all the container for code. I don't have anything, so I start with the developer first. I will go back to my blog. I will copy this whole code and I will dump it inside developer. What it has is utilize the functionality provided by the AMD Foundation APIs, which is like defined to define a module or object or a class, whatever you want to call it. The declare is the method or the functionality provided by the Dojo. It's not the AMD. It's Dojo functionality which let you create the inheritance or simulate the inheritance just like Java or the C++. It will be much more clear when I will move to the Java developer and JavaScript developer classes or the objects. Right now, I just provided a constructor. It will create this object. When we will create this object, it will get called. So what we will do, we'll just pass some kind of name and it will initialize the name field by that. The common functionality, the print skill, which will take the object skill and it will just print it. The print the name, works on, yeah, where the developer work on. Let's move to the next class, which is the Java developer. I will go back to my blog. I will come down and copy the Java developer code. As I explained previously, that the Java developer know that my skill is Java, so it overridden the Java skill property. It knows that I'm gonna work on the server side, so I just override this method. This little line I will explain in some time, so I just comment right now. Then I will move to the JavaScript developer to create the class JavaScript. So it's override the work on. I will comment this part. And third is the last one, the fourth one is Node.js developer. I will dump this code here. Now all the classes are ready. Now we have to pull all the classes in one single file to understand that how things work. I will go back to my the blog and I will copy this HTML file. Now there's so much code here, but to explain things, I will just try to remove some of the code to make things clear. Now I start with the top. If you don't understand what this Dojo config work, go back to my previous article and you will good to go. So I just start with from require. Require is the AMD Foundation API. It's pull the developer, Java developer, JavaScript developer, Node.js developer class inside this function. And inside the function, I will just create the instance of developer right now, which is the parent class, the parent most class, and I will call the print skill, print name, work on, and I will just try to understand, is developer an instance of developer, this developer variable is the instance of developer class or not, or is something else. So I just move to this page and I'll just refresh this page and it says, yeah, skill, no skill. And I coding club, I'm not sure. If I just move things on the right side and inside the inside the Sublime text. Okay. So you can see that skill, no skill, I coding club, not sure is very much identical to what we have inside. So skills is we'll just say that skill say no skill, which is coming from the parent most class, no skill. And yeah, work on, I'm not sure where I work on. So far, we have not utilized anything of inheritance, so it looks like that. But now what I will do is I will just copy the Java developer. I will put it here, and suddenly this developer variable become a Java developer instance. Now when I print this, I will refresh the browser. The print skill should print the Java, and print name is still same, the iconic club, and work on will print, I no longer work on the client side. I'm no longer confused about where I work. I actually work on the server side because I'm a Java developer. As we expected, yeah, skill is Java, name is iconic club. I work on server side, and last is true, which is, yeah, developer is the instance of developer because Java developer actually extend the developer. The other thing is like if I also make it JavaScript, sorry, Java developer, it will also print true. And just for the fun, I just have one more line where is JavaScript developer. So I'm expecting true, true, and false because this is not a JavaScript instance. As we expected, true, true, and false. Now, one feature which is very, very common in the Java and other languages, that is the calling the parent class method. How we call it is we utilize the super keyword to call the parent class method. In traditional approach on traditional JavaScript inheritance, it's very difficult to mimic that super kind of feature unless until you are not providing some kind of custom implementation. What does it provide you? It's provide some kind of very unified and very nice way to call the parent class method. What it does is provided you this dot inherited method. For Java, guys, it's just like a super calling a super. What it does like is go back to its parent class. In the parent class, it's just look for the method which has the same signature, and it call that method and come back here and then call the rest of the thing. So it will actually go to developer and call the work on, come back to the Java developer and print this one. So let's check that. We don't need print skill. We already checked that. We don't need work on. Sorry, we need work on and we don't need this statement. So I just comment those things. If I run it now, it's calling the parent function first. It print not sure, and then it's calling the current class function, which is, yeah, I work on server side. Now, if I just want the other way around, what I can do is I will just take it, this whole line, do lots of things, and put this entered in the end. What it does is like it does all the job first, and then it's called the parent method. Both way has a utilization, and there are places where you want to call it first or you want to call it last. If I just refresh the browser now, no wonder it's changed the sequence. So I work on server side print first and not sure second. In similar fashion, if I just take this Node.js developer and I put it here, suddenly my developer instance will become a Node.js developer. If I just refresh the browser, say I work on server side. So yeah, actually I commented the things. So just Control Z, and yeah, we have copy the Node.js again. If I refresh, it says the skill in Node.js, and yeah, um, I work. My name is Iconica, and I work on the server side. Why? because we override the skill properties and we override the method. Now, if I want to say, Node.js, it's not a skill. Yeah, it's a kind of workplace. The skill is the JavaScript, so I remove it. In that case, what happened that Node.js developer will look to the parent class. Which one is the parent class? So it's JavaScript developer is the parent class. It goes here, look for the skill. So it says the JavaScript. It just print that. If I just run it, so the skill is modified to JavaScript. And this is the way things work. It's pretty simple, pretty straight. And it's almost, if you can just compare the things, it's almost like having the four class and almost like kind of extending a parent class, uh, something like that. Now we'll move to the second approach what we discussed in starting, that is the mix-in approach. Now with my experience, most of the time I end up in using the mix-in approach. The mixing approach is pretty nice. Just first we have to think like what we're trying to solve. What we're trying to solve is like we have a developer and by default it has no skill. Now if I want a Java skill, I will include the mixin Java skill and I will get the Java skill certainly. Same way if I just want JavaScript skills, I will include that. If I need both Java and JavaScript, I will include both and I will get a Java skill and the JavaScript skill both. This is the way you keep on including the mixin and you keep on getting the functionality and the feature in the main class. To explain things, I just modified a little bit. So we have the module. For the mixin, the common the common convention is that we rename the file with the mixin suffix so that we know that it's more like an mixin. So now in this case, we have one JavaScript skill mixin and Java skill mixin, and we'll call everything in test.html. Mixin approach, we have to modify the developer.js file a little bit. So it is the kind of main class which include the mixins. So I just copied this whole code and dump it to my developer.js. I'll go back to the blog and I will copy the Java skill mixin. I will put inside the Java developer.js and I will rename to Java skill mixin. And the last is copying the JavaScript mixin. We'll go to JavaScript developer, modify everything, rename it to JavaScript skill mixin. I don't need Node.js developers, so I just delete this file. Done with defining all the objects or the classes. I will come to this file, the HTML file, to copy the code, which I can utilize for testing or R&D. I will replace the old code with the new one. Now in this code, you can see the first and foremost difference between the previous example and this example is, in the previous example, I kind of included all the dependency apart from developer. So the JavaScript developer dependency, the Java developer dependency, and Node.js one. In this case, it's only one. So we have the developer here. I pass the name and try to print the skill, print the name, and I try to ask, do you know Java, do you know the JavaScript and all those things. If I refresh right now, So it says that yeah, my skill is included now enhanced to the Java and the JavaScript thanks to all the mixin. Name is encoding club. Do you know Java? Yes, I do know Java. Do you know JavaScript? Yeah, because both the functionality is there. The last one says yeah, I work on the JavaScript, which is not what we wanted, maybe depending on the case, because we thought like but when I include the mixin, I will get the work on which says that I work on JavaScript, and then the second is says that I work on Java. So we actually have two work on methods inside the developer, and developer need it's more like in Dojo need to say that which work on will be finally included into the developer class, because at the end of day only one property with the one with the all the properties should have the unique name. So the way it work is the story based, the mystery lies in this, the array of mixin. The way it does it, the last mixin what you provide, that get the highest preference. So the first mixin say, I work on the Java on the server side, but second mixin say, no, I work on the client side, and suddenly the JavaScript mixin will get the preference. So we come in and say, I work on JavaScript, and it's gone. That's why it's printing, I work on JavaScript. But I what if I want to print that, I work on Java also, and I work on this JavaScript also? What we can do, we can call our old print this dot inherited an argument. What it does is actually go back when we call in the JavaScript mixin, it's actually look in the JavaScript skill mixin and call this method, and then it comes to the parent most. Since we don't have any other work on, it will not call anything. But for the fun, just keep it says. So I just refresh the whole browser and we see that. Now we can see that it's printing the work on Java also and work on JavaScript also. One more time, how it work is JavaScript mixin. We call this dot inherited first, so it will look for the previous mixin on the list, that is Java skill mixin. Call this particular method, and then it go back to the developer.js. Very likely, very much like the previous example, if I want to change the sequence, I will just cut it. I will put it here, and if I refresh the page, the sequence change. So this is all I wanted to cover in today's video. So if you work in the last, I just want to pass the information that if you worked on the pure JavaScript inheritance in past, you must and you should actually appreciate the way to just solve this inheritance problem. It's much more easier, much more systematic, much more structured now, and at least I love it. I hope you will also love it. So if you like the video, please click on the like, and if you want similar kind of video, the notification for similar kind of video, just make sure that you click on subscribe. Thank you.